Chapter 2. Jane Doe, POV. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall across from me. It was painted a soft lavender color. The window was open, letting the evening breeze sweep in, bringing the smells of the forest with it. I took a deep breath, allowing my eyes to drift shut as the deep knot in my stomach began to slowly untangle. I felt I could breathe a full breath for the first time in too long. My eyes popped open as I heard footsteps approaching the closed door to my temporary bedroom. I felt my muscles immediately begin to tense up again. My heart began to race and I could feel sweat trickle down my back. A soft knock sounded before Shelley opened the door. She took slow, measured steps inside and sat on the armchair next to the window. She folded her hands in her lap and met my gaze for the briefest of moments before I looked away, bringing my focus back to the wall. "I'm not sure how long you'll be here. Your stay would probably be much shorter if you'd answer your caseworker's questions, but I'm sure you already know that." Duh, I thought. I was born at night, but not last night. "You're old enough to know that you aren't helping yourself with your vow of silence. I only have interest in helping people who help themselves. You'll be assigned chores to pull your weight around here. Clean up after yourself and don't cause trouble. Once I get your therapy schedule, I'll post it on the fridge for you." Therapy schedule? The fuck? But I wouldn't allow myself to react to her words. I held my body rigid and my eyes remained locked on the wall. No sudden movements, no emotions. That's what keeps you safe. Now that Mom, Dad, and Nick are gone, I felt the lump forming in my throat, threatening to choke the life out of me, so I shoved those thoughts down deeper and locked them into the cage in the back of my mind. Instead, I embraced the darkness that coiled inside my chest, letting its cold numbness spread through every inch of my body. In my peripheral vision, I watched Shelley's eyes widen as she gave a small audible gasp of shock. Shelley sprang to her feet much faster than a woman of her age should be able to. "Well," she said breathlessly, "I'll let you get some rest. Coffee pot turns on at 7, and I start breakfast at 7:30. With that, she walked out and shut the door behind her with a soft click. I stood rummaging through the dresser drawers and closet for clean clothes. There were a few pairs of shoes on the floor of the closet, and most of the clothes were my size. I took a shirt and panties into the attached bathroom and decided to shower before climbing into bed. I rolled over and realized the window was still open. With a groan, I stood and reached out to grab each side. Movement at the tree line caught my eye, and I froze. I squinted my eyes, but I couldn't pick up anything out of the shadows. I pulled the window closed and tested the lock to make sure it would hold before drawing the curtains and burrowing under the blankets. A faint beeping pulled me out of my restless sleep. I pushed the covers off my head and sat up, looking around with bleary eyes to locate the source of the infernal sound. I heard shuffling in the room next door before the sound came to a sudden stop. Must be Shelley's alarm. I sighed and flopped back on the pillow, staring at the ceiling. I knew there was no hope of going back to sleep, so I dragged myself out of bed and did my morning business in the bathroom. I pulled on a snug pair of high-waisted jeans and followed my nose towards the food. I found Shelley standing at the stove. Her home had a very open concept, but the kitchen was definitely the focus of the house. A large island took up the center of the room with seats along one side. There was a large oak dining table that could easily seat a dozen people along one wall near a picture window. I perched on a stool and tried to decide how best to announce myself without startling her. Before I came to a decision, the back door flew open, and 3 bare-chested boys came barreling through like a tornado. They were roughhousing with each other and laughing until they caught sight of me. They froze, staring at me. This was a look I had gotten way too much over the last week. I averted my gaze, folding my hands on the marble countertop and gazing blankly out the window towards the woods. I watched Shelley out of the corner of my eye as she turned towards the boys and bid them good morning, giving each of them a kiss on the cheek. They each had to stoop down so she could reach them, but they didn't seem to mind. "Take a seat and introduce yourself," she said as she waved a spatula towards the remaining stools at the island. They slowly approached, leaving 2 empty seats between me and them, as they sank onto their own stools. I kept my eyes forward, pretending they weren't there. Not engaging with strangers was easier than trying to meet social expectations. I learned that the only person who's going to look out for me is me, so what's the point of meaningless conversation with people I'll never see again once I leave? Rather than waste time, energy, and brain power, I opted to grab a mug of coffee and retreat back to my temporary bedroom without a word instead.